It's the left versus the right. Debate. Heavyweight slugfest.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a happy Saturday afternoon, because if you are, we're going to make it happier, and if you're not, we're going to move you into a better place than you were when this program started. But I can't do it alone. So I have two ways to address this. I can go sit in the hall and let Jake do the rest of the show, or I can introduce my co-host, my friend, and my partner, Jake Novak.
Thank you very much. It's always great to be. This is so much fun doing the show every week. I can't think of anything I've done in broadcasting that I've enjoyed more than this show. I'm serious.
Wow,
it's true. I mean, it's just enjoyable every time, and and that's even when they don't serve us the wine and beer.
Exactly.
So we're doing really well.
So, big happenings this week, and a lot going on. Why don't you introduce to the audience what we think is really the most relevant issues this week?
Well, I'm going to declare victory for the both of us, considering what we talked about last week. And last week I threw down the gauntlet, which you accepted, where I basically said that if the Democratic Party is going to be saved from this socialist nonsense and from all the nonsense, saved period, they're going to need black voters and black people within the Democratic Party to save it. And sure enough, we've had a couple of good developments on that score from precisely the people that I wanted to at least be part of it. First, we have Donovan Richards, the borough president of Queens, an African-American man who called out Democrat socialism as being basically, I mean, he used the term white supremacy, but what I think he really meant was this is a rich white boy costume playing game. And it's got nothing to do with the people who really need better representation and good government. This is not about representing real New Yorkers and real African-American New Yorkers or white New Yorkers either, real people. So I thought that was fantastic. And then towards the end of the week, you have Donna Brazile, who's, a very well-known African-American political leader, never elected to anything, but she's been, she's had her hand on a lot of campaigns. She doesn't have the greatest success record, but that said, she's not a dummy. I don't think she's a dummy. I never felt that about her. And she stood up at the end of the week at a number of events and talked about how the black voters within the Democratic Party need to continue to be getting their voice heard as much better than now. She slammed the socialist stuff too. And she also made a big play to keep the South Carolina primary as a very, very important role that it plays in the nominating process. So, which is almost exclusively black voters. I mean, the Democratic Party voters in South Carolina are almost exclusively black. So I thought this was a good development. I don't know if they were listening to us or not, Governor, but this is, again, I'll say it again. Not only don't listen to me, listen to Donovan Richards and Donna Brazile, and listen to Governor Paterson. Black people need to save this party, and this wasn't a bad start considering it was only 7 days ago. I'll take it.
So I believe the story came out in the Post late Monday afternoon. So it wasn't Monday morning. So it really hit on Tuesday morning, and that's when I started hearing about it. And I was really pleased to hear this after what we had said last week. And then I get a phone call from Carl Campanile from the Post.
Right.
He's the one who wrote the article. Uh-huh. He talked to me for 30 minutes. He didn't put one sentence of anything I said in the article.
Was he the one who cut out your 3-pointer at the West 4th Street courts as well?
Yeah, he did that as well.
Yeah, and, these guys, you're
Carl,
getting edited too much.
Come on, spread the wealth a little bit around here.
Yeah.
One of us put your story right on the front page of the Times, and a couple of people backed it up. You could do a little better than that. But I have to tell you this, and I think I've referred to this on a previous show, that I have a friend who is white. He is Caucasian. Mm. He is white like snow.
Okay.
And
I can relate.
He thinks he's black.
Oh.
Now,
okay, that's not my deal.
How this happened, I'm not really clear, but apparently at some point in his life, he wound up living among a lot of black people.
Okay.
And he's a very bright guy. He, is an investment banker, does a lot of things. And he called me up to criticize the article.
Oh.
And his point was that these socialists, while you can all attack them and that kind of thing, they're winning in the polls.
Mm.
They're winning the vote. They're winning the votes in these areas. And I said to him, I don't think they are winning the votes. So we went back and forth and back and forth. And finally, when I realized I couldn't convince him, I said, sometimes it's not who's right and who's it's not which side you take, is which side is right.
Yeah.
Is it right for the socialists to overturn the Democratic Party and with it disrupt the black community, which is disrupted enough before they got there?
Yeah.
And he didn't really want to hear it. So,
well, you should tell him, first of all, to read the recent work done by my friend Scott Rasmussen, who I think is the best pollster in America, because he's more than just a numbers guy. He understands how to listen to voices really well. And, for example, and he did that in other parts of his life, too. He and his father founded ESPN, for example. So at a time when that was needed.
Yeah, right.
So he's an amazing guy. And he just put out something talking about how 10% of American voters favor socialism. That's it. Now, a huge concentration of them may be in a couple of districts here in New York, but even then, I don't believe they're the majority. They were the majority of people who showed up to vote that day. I'll give you that. But if you had a better voter turnout, they wouldn't even win in these small, relatively geographically small areas either. So your friend is absolutely wrong. They're not a majority. They are not really that popular. And a good get-out-the-vote effort by traditional black Democrats, or in some cases Republicans in other areas, will absolutely defeat them. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, you're right. I mean, look, so they can win elections. They're going to absolutely gut and hurt the black community when it doesn't have any hurt left to give. I mean, really, this is crazy. I mean, how many times are we going to see newer and newer groups that come to America continue to lap the black community economically and politically? It's really frustrating. It must be incredibly frustrating. It's like rooting for the Jets. The team that the Jets was a little bit better than every year ends up the next year they're better than they get lapped every time. It's really frustrating.
By the way, Jake, I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
On CNN, I guess it would be a week from tomorrow, a week from Sunday.
Okay.
They're going to have this show involving sports teams that were supposed to really lose, but yet they won.
Okay.
But they never said who the teams were. If they don't put the Jets in there, then they really just have no soul.
Yeah, the 68 Jets in January of 69 winning Super Bowl III. That's and then, of course, the Mets doing it
later that year.
9 months later, right. So
and then
those
the Knicks carried over to 1970.
Yeah, but the Knicks were a 60-win ball team that year.
Yeah, they were.
And they had been flirting with. So, yeah, they're not a miracle team. They're great. That was a great team, and they overcame a lot to win. But, yeah, I in the 1970 Knicks. But, yeah, a few of those. I mean, I also, people forget about, that's the New York bias, too. If I throw in the 1991 Minnesota Twins winning the World Series, that was incredible.
It
Shocker.
was.
I mean, they were dead last the year before. And
unless you
crazy.
watch baseball regularly, you couldn't appreciate how great that was.
Yeah. And they had won 4 years before, so people thought it was the same team, but it wasn't the same team. And there was a Columbia grad who won that World Series with a pop to the outfield. The Braves had to bring the outfield in, if you remember, because the bases were loaded with less than 2 outs. And Gene Larkin, who had broken all of Lou Gehrig's hitting records, most of them, at Columbia. So I was a senior at Columbia at the time. We're all sitting in my fraternity's common room, and we're seeing a Columbia player literally win the World Series in a walk-off fashion. I mean, what a great way to end my at least the first semester of my senior year.
How our show flows from sports to art to culture to comedy.
Yes.
Now that we've touched on baseball, this week was the 100th anniversary of the event out at Mitchell Field in Long Island, when they had a plane go up in the air, and from the plane they dropped a baseball, and it was caught by a man who caught a lot of baseballs, Babe Ruth.
Yeah, and it's a great story to remind people how he was a great fielder. He was not like a lot of people think, oh, well, he wasn't a great fielder.
Like he just,
he was fat or whatever, and he was in right field or whatever.
That's
but
how
he was
I
a great
imagined
fielder.
him when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, he had a better arm than he had a glove, but he was still a good fielder. He was not, you look at his, all those, if you're the geeks who look at those kinds of stats, as a fielder, he was not a net negative. And, of course, had a lot to do with his early years as a pitcher and then his earlier years with the Yankees when he wasn't as stout, but in stature. But he was a very good fielder. Yeah, and I guess they flew a biplane up there in 1926 and dropped the ball, and he caught it no problem.
And not to be outdone, a candidate for governor, Bruce Blakeman, the county executive, got this big fire truck with a ladder that went up like a couple hundred feet or something, and they dropped some balls, and my understanding is no one caught them.
Wasn't Blakeman an athlete as a young man? I
Yes.
think, yeah, he's
Yes.
yeah, I think he was. So yeah,
So,
okay.
so it was a good tribute that he did for that. But getting back to just this whole issue of how society reacts to different stimuli, what's really strange about this is that the Democratic Socialists act like they've already won.
Yeah.
They're walking around having parades and patting each other on the back and talking about these, wonderful things that are going to happen now. But Mamdani won. A couple of legislators won. But I doubt how much things will change in the next 2 years. And now they've got all these rumors out about AOC running for president and Mamdani running for senator. AOC running for president. I ask you, listeners, take out a map and look at the alphabetical list of the states and check off the states he's going to win.
Yeah.
Starting with Alabama, no.
Yeah.
Arizona, no.
Yeah.
Arkansas, no. California, don't even think, maybe, but I think perhaps. But they actually believe these things are going to happen.
Well, here's a memo to the Democratic Socialists. First of all, we know that they're not really good on their history. They don't study history unless they call it some kind of gender studies. That happens some history in there. New York, no New York City mayor has any national appeal as far as really winning an election himself. You had Rudy Giuliani, who was very popular nationally at some point when there was support for New York and people liked the crime going down, and then they supported him in the wake of 9/11. But we all know how well he did in the primaries when he actually ran for president. It was a complete flop. John Lindsay, complete flop. Mayors of New York City do not.
Bill de Blasio.
Yeah, Bill de Blasio. Mayors of New York City don't sell in Peoria. Don't make it in Peoria. Then you also have, when was the last member of Congress from New York City area who had any kind of prominence nationally? In fact, the answer is really, I can't think of any. Jack Kemp was from Buffalo. He had a national following for a while, but he was from Buffalo, not New York City. The last New York City-based politician, and he was never elected to any office in New York City alone, was FDR, who was governor of New York before he became president of the United States. But he was never a New York City official. The last New York City official who became a national figure was Teddy Roosevelt, who was the commissioner of police in New York. That was a long time ago.
That is
Over
right.
100,
Wow.
like 120 years ago. We're talking about a really long time ago. This city is special for what it is. And by the way, I used to take it as a kind of thing of pride as a New Yorker that we were so unique. But it always made me laugh when certain New York City-based politicians,
for
national
these
office.
national offices. And the interesting thing is, no New York City mayor ever won any seat
Anything.
beyond mayor.
That's right.
They never did. So,
Right.
if you're sitting out there, let's see, who's listening to the show today? I'm sure Eric Adams is going to try again.
Yeah.
Then he becomes mayor. Then he becomes governor. And, no, it's not going to happen.
It's a ceiling. Being a mayor of New York City is a ceiling in and of itself. And the best mayors of New York City, at least while they were mayor, I believe, considered themselves at their ceiling. I know Rudy Giuliani afterwards decided he was going to run for the Senate, but I don't think that when he first became mayor in 1993, 94, I think he thought that was his ceiling. And
He
I think
was
that was
about
true.
the city.
Yeah.
And he knew the same statistics we knew. And he figured, I can be here for 8 years. I can go out. Everybody will love what I'm doing when I leave. They'll call me back. But if I do it right, I don't go back.
Yeah.
And I think really trying to do that presidency thing hurt him, no more so than the others who tried. But I would have thought somebody is going to be mayor of the city and just kind of step down and keep going. And somebody did, Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah.
And he, of course, he could have financed his campaign for president, but he didn't do it.
Yeah, he should not have run for president in 2020. And by the way, he's still kicking himself. He still has people who worked on that campaign suing him. So, that was a huge mistake when he ran, and I immediately called it. The second he declared, I wrote an editorial for CNBC saying this is a huge mistake, and it was a huge mistake. It ended up being just
interesting. It's as if
waste of money.
There's a ravine, and in politics, some people know how to climb to the top of the ravine, and some people don't. But all the ones that came to the top thought they could dive in the water, and they drowned. And that's what's going to happen when another New York City mayor tries to run for president. It's just not going to happen. I actually think, James, they should put it in the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah, they might. But I know that, the rumors are now that Mamdani will try to muscle out AOC to challenge Schumer for the Senate seat. And that'll be a huge mistake for him. I hope he does it because
She'll beat him.
We'll talk about Mamdani in the next segment because he had a terrible, terrible week, rightfully so.
Yes, he did. Now, it also, this has been, quite a week, but the issues of what's going on in Washington and, how the House and Senate members are dealing with, different situations. Obviously, just this weekend, we're going to find out who is going to be the official nominee from Maine, and it will be the guy who they say has a really bad temper. You read about
That's
him?
what they need, yeah. Something Jackson, I think his name is.
Yeah.
Another white guy. He's a logger. Seems like he really is a logger. But in Maine, the logging business is a very lucrative one. Forestry in Maine. I've met some of the people in the forestry business in Maine. As you know, I used to live there. I'm not saying everyone in there is wealthy, but he's not Paul Bunyan, is what I'm trying to say.
No.
And he's not the guy from the Brawny paper towel label. But he seems to be more of a genuine character than Graham Plattner was, although that's easy to do. But I think they're cooked, just like the Democrats were cooked when they switched out Biden. You can't go all in on a candidate, the wrong candidate, and then switch them.
Patch it up at the last minute.
It's brand. It's like basically, you're at a car dealership and the dealer's telling you, the salesman's telling you, this 4-door sedan is the best thing in the world. Oh, wait a minute.
Right.
Now I'm going to only sell you a 2-door. Forget what I said before. You walk out of there. That's kind of the way it works.
Yeah, and I think it was evidenced no more so than it was when Kamala Harris came in to replace Biden. If you don't have a good relief pitcher, don't put a bad one in.
I always thought that, and there was a movie called Wag the Dog that made fun of it too.
Oh, absolutely.
I always thought that line, you shouldn't change horses midstream, was a stupid cliche and wasn't really true because, that was a campaign slogan. This was the campaign slogan they used for FDR when he was running for his 4th term because the war wasn't quite over yet, even though D-Day had already gone successfully and things like that. And that was literally a major slogan of the campaign. You can't switch horses midstream. FDR is about to get us across this stream, win us this war. And then in Wag the Dog, they did the same thing. Like, you don't want to change horses midstream. And they were making fun of it. But you know what? It's true. If you've got this guy that you're on, that everyone is pushing, that they're pushing on you heavily, and in the middle of the race you switch them, that's death. They could have put, whatever, a really beloved character in there to replace Biden.
That's the voice of Jake Novak, my partner, who's done very well. He's done so well, we're going to have him come back for a 2nd term right after we have these few and important commercial messages.
It's the left versus the right. It's the left versus the right. Debate. Heavyweight slugfest.
We're back on the left versus the right, and this program is really going to take a turn for just the insane and just the morbid and just the worst things that can happen in life. 2 stabbings just a few days ago. One victim Jewish, and the other Asian, right?
But they were both near a synagogue, and
right. And
so
they weren't. And they didn't know each other.
No.
They were just in the area. And, this psychopath goes up and stabs both of them. And I believe they're still recovering.
Yeah.
They are.
Thank God. Yeah.
Oh.
So, we were talking about this off the air, and I was glad that you're as clear-minded as I am about this. One thing people should understand, and we're going to, I'm laying this very much on the feet of Mayor Mamdani, but I want to make it clear why I'm doing that. You hear a lot of people saying terms like stoking the flames of anti-Semitism or causing anti-Semitic violence. I don't use those terms because that's idiotic. Someone who's going to go and stab somebody and has that hatred in their heart isn't going to suddenly decide they hate Jews or hate blacks or hate whoever they're attacking because someone just said it. It isn't a triggered thing. They always felt that way, or they felt that way for a long time. But when they see a mayor, in this case, calling the leader of the only Jewish state in the world, and he's the longest-serving leader of that state, and calling him a war criminal, and he's the only person that he calls a war criminal, the only person potentially coming to the United Nations General Assembly, including the president of Iran, including the leaders of China, including the leaders of all the countries where there is actual documented war crimes, then what that tells someone who already hates Jews or already wants to commit an act of violence is, I think this is a good atmosphere. I think that the weather, this is it. This is a good time to do this. The thing I wanted to do, but was afraid I would be completely castigated for. Now I know I'll be okay. That's what we're talking about here. And I don't care if people think it's a stretch or not. Mayor Mamdani's speech that he put out on video on his social media, calling Netanyahu a war criminal. And by the way, it was him doing it. People said, well, he was just quoting the International Criminal Court's indictment. No, it wasn't. The ICC does not call Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal. As bad as it is, as bad as that quote-unquote indictment is, it doesn't do that. He goes well beyond that. And it's if you are someone who wants to do violence against Jews, that you've been waiting for that little signal that this will be a time when you might get away with it, or at least you'll get a lot of support, that's what they got out of that speech. And sure enough, within 48 hours, 2 people, and the second person this guy stabbed, he was hoping it was a Jew. It doesn't really matter who it was. He was stabbing people coming out of a synagogue on a very, very important Jewish holiday in the terms of holy day, not a celebration day. It was the most important Jewish fast day, the most saddest day of the year in the Jewish calendar, and now it's even sadder. So there you go.
And my question is that once it was made clear to him, although it was clear all along, that a mayor did not have the authority nor the power to arrest someone, it would have to come through the New York City Police Department. My understanding, Jake, and I could be wrong because I don't like to, carry rumors, is that Commissioner Tisch was about to have a press conference making it clear that they would provide support to Prime Minister Netanyahu as he was a visiting dignitary just like the others who might be in, unsafe circumstances because of the countries that they led. But before she could get the press conference going, when, they sent out the note to the media, the Mamdani people got it, and he beat her to the punch by saying that, we've looked into this now, it's not legal. So what people should think about doing when he's here is protesting. And, I just found that to be so small-minded, so aggravating. I can't remember the last one. There were some, but I can't remember elected officials just being so banal that he would get up and say something like that. And where does he get his information from?
Yeah. Now he's angered the police department, not just Jessica Tisch, the commissioner, but the PBA, the police union, has come out with a statement just at the end of the week saying that this call to protest when Netanyahu comes, which is what Mamdani said, which was a real wink and a nod, like, well, we can't arrest him, but you can protest. And he knows what those protesters are like. They've been violent. I keep telling him, don't call it a protest. If someone is going into traffic, using noise pollution, threatening people, that's an attack. It's not a protest. It's still an attack even if someone doesn't shoot you or use a bomb. It's still an attack. Ask anyone, ask anyone who understands this kind of stuff. It's still an act of violence. And the PBA is saying it's going to be so much harder for them to do their job now at the UNGA because of this. And they're right to be angry. And this is something, by the way, boy, Where were these police unions during COVID all over the country and even all over the world when they were being told to go round up people who weren't wearing masks or were having a barbecue? They should have also come out and said, you can't do this to us. You know, we're too busy doing real work here. And thank goodness that the PBA, which for years has been a little bit of a thorn in my side, as a conservative, I certainly support the police. I think the PBA sometimes, especially in the late 90s, went too far on a number of things. But this is where I'm very happy to have them around, for them to say, this mayor is literally telling New Yorkers to be disorderly. And thanks a lot.
And what a turn from 60 years ago when the late Dr. King would lead marches. They always stayed on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
They always went where the police told them they could go. And sometimes the violence and the vitriol didn't come from anything the protesters did because they were following the rules. It came from people who wanted to disrupt the protest.
Yeah, and they weren't trying to bother people just trying to go to work or get to a child's appointment.
Right.
I mean, even Malcolm X, when they would protest outside a police precinct, they weren't going into neighborhoods and blocking traffic.
No.
They weren't on the Brooklyn Bridge trying to stop people from I mean, this is crazy. This is an attack. And the people who are funding it are not American. They're literally foreign enemies of this country. This is not, I mean, for those of you who are having trouble conflating the difference between what Martin Luther King did and Malcolm X did with these groups, I just sorted it out for you. These people are causing problems for ordinary people in their daily lives. And you know who does those kinds of things? Not black people. You know who, for example, the anti-Vietnam War protests, one of the most famous ones in San Francisco, where they just went on a street where there was a draft board, but it was a street but that draft board was also a residential area. And they went and trashed everybody's car and everybody's home front, the fronts of their homes in San Francisco. And this was a poor neighborhood in San Francisco, and it was a bunch of rich white kids having a tantrum. That's what this is too.
Yeah, in a mostly black neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was, oh, wow, that was something. And the other thing that it has taken me a while, I usually catch on to things a lot quicker, to recognize that these types of protests are not just a bunch of people getting together and someone saying, all right, we're going to go up the street, we're going to chant, whatever, and we're not going to, step out of line with the police or anything like that. We just want to be seen and heard. Yeah. That doesn't happen anymore because the people who are doing it are paid.
Right.
So they will be the first ones in the street. They will be the ones that will try to antagonize the police before the police arrest and assault them, which at that point they would deserve because they picked the fight and they got it. And it just makes me wonder why somebody would think that they could finance an overturn of government. I just don't get that.
Yeah, and well, they got to show results for the cash. You mentioned, I mean, you get paid. By the way, this is the same thing. I once had someone who was a career person at the CIA tell me this, and this reminds me of the same rule that he told me. He said, look, the CIA uses two types of sources in enemy territory: people that we pay for information and people that we know hate the ruling faction so much that they give us information. And he told me, guess who is more reliable? He said, actually, the crazies, the ones who just hate the ruling faction are more reliable than the ones we pay, because the ones we pay will come up and make up something every once in a while to get the paycheck. So these people who are causing the violence in the city, blocking the traffic, occupying the buildings, bothering ordinary people just trying to go about their daily lives, are trying to earn the paycheck and prove that they created some mayhem. Whereas people who really believe in this kind of stuff, and I think that they're fewer and far between. Again, I think only a small percentage of people actually even care about these issues, let alone are going to go out and protest about them. They care more about their own paycheck and their own situation at home. They're not necessarily going to cause this kind of mayhem. So,
well, that's really the apex of the problem right now, and it's not just in New York City. It's spreading. It's happening in other places, and the voices of people who really want to exalt a protest based on what they think is going wrong, what they think should be changed, and that kind of thing, are being drowned out by it. So they're being drowned out by the militant protesters, and the people who run the towns, the villages, and the cities where these protests occur are being drowned out by the threat of violence and often the actual existence of violence during these marches.
Early Friday afternoon, Governor, I posted something on my X account. Simple, one line, be louder than they are. And I meant that literally and figuratively. A lot of their tactics are, for example, go to a sidewalk cafe and start protesting loudly against Israel or Jewish people. Get in the face of folks. First of all, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're one of those people who's doing this, I'm louder than you. I have a really loud voice that I can use when I want to, and I will shout much louder in your face than you think humanly possible. But I also meant it figuratively. Jewish people especially, the answer to anti-Semitism is not to run and hide. Don't hide your Jewish star. Don't take your kippah off. Be more publicly Jewish than anyone could ever imagine. Do that. Be louder than they are in every way, because they think that if they're loud, they can frighten people from doing what they would otherwise do. And again, if I were on that subway car a couple of years ago when there was somebody who got in a subway car with his buddies and said, "Are there any Zionists on the train?" and he thought he was being really loud, boy, he's lucky I wasn't on that train. I would have blown out both of his eardrums, and I don't need a microphone. I'm like Chuck Schumer 30 years ago. Remember, he had the loudest freaking voice I'd ever heard in humanity.
Oh, yes.
I thought he swallowed a microphone. He's not as loud anymore, thank God. He never actually said anything.
Well, he hasn't gotten the microphone back up yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's something. He was a loud MFer, man. I'm telling you. You always knew he was in the room. I mean, he was super loud, and he's kind of lost that, thankfully. I can be much louder than that, and I will blow out both your eardrums. I will be louder than you, and I'm also not ashamed. By the way, this is also a tactic I've used for years when someone is being very publicly menacing on a train or something like that. Not politically, but maybe trying to frighten people. And I usually yell at them and tell them, "I'm sorry, but this was my day to be the crazy guy on this train.
That's right.
This is my shift. You need to go on the C train." It shocks them. And I said, listen, I often say, I'm the craziest one in the room, and it upsets the crazy people who are trying to be the craziest one in the room when you show them that you're crazier than they are. So that's my advice.
As you're telling the story, Jake, I must have been in my early 20s, and I'm coming uptown on the 2 train. I don't even know where I was coming from, but I realized that I am one of like 3 or 4 people who are actually on the train, but there are these other guys who are kind of lurking around. And I'm getting the feeling that I'm a target, and other people were. So at the next stop, I waited until the doors closed, and I got up, turned toward the chair and, toward the seat, and kicked it. I went, "Damn it, to hell."
That's right. You be crazier than they are.
And these guys, and then I walked out of the train. I walked to the next car, and they stepped out of the way.
Being loud, I mean, all joking aside, being loud is a great first weapon in self-defense.
Absolutely.
Back off. What you do is you take a step forward with your hand pushed out like you're saying stop, like trying to stop traffic. Back off. Give me space. That's something you should do. And I didn't say it hardly loud enough as I should have just now, but I was doing it. I didn't want to blow out your eardrums on the radio.
We're even going to be louder.
Yeah.
But as a prelude to that, some very important messages that you need to hear. And then when you come back, you'll find out how loud we can be.
It's the left versus the right. It's the left versus the right. Debate. Heavyweight slugfest.
We're back on the left versus the right. Jake Novak with David Paterson. And this is our last segment, so we're really going to get to it here. We were talking during the break about Mayor Mamdani, and it's almost as if he came from out of nowhere. I didn't even know his name until I think I got a they send you what the ballot will look like or something.
Right,
and I'm like, who's this guy? Then I started to hear more about him. And, I will give him his props. He speaks very well. He can be charming to a degree when he wants to be. But this city can't. We've taken him for 7 months now. I don't see how we get to 2 years of him.
He's not growing into the job. I mean, he took a huge step back personally with this whole "I'm going to arrest," trying to arrest
that's
Prime
one of the
Minister
worst
Netanyahu
thing
thing.
I've seen any
It was a
elected
lose.
official do from any capacity.
It was real. It was real malpractice. It was real, mayoral malpractice. There wasn't anything good. There wasn't anything good that was going to come from it. It wasn't going to make the virulent anti-Semites who voted for him feel good because now they're not going to get what they want. He stoked with a wink and a nod to violent protesters. Go ahead and do that. So it wasn't good for the city. It wasn't even good for his really crazy supporters, and it wasn't good for him. So there was that. And then he announces very smugly that they're going to send out these new tax bills to people who own second properties, second homes in New York City.
Oh, this is where he writes, if you own a second home that's worth $5 million and you're overseas right now, hop on a plane and come back and get to your apartment because you've got mail.
Yeah. So in a smug way.
Yeah, devil, you've got mail in.
Now, a lot of my very good and versed and talented colleagues have spent a lot of time in the last few months and just in the last several hours, since that post was put out by the mayor, proving very, very well how socialism and these kinds of policies and overtaxation lead to economic misery for everyone, especially the poor. And I commend them on their work, but it's a waste of time. Communists, especially communists like Zohran Mamdani, who grew up wealthy and privileged in a second home compound in Uganda, by the way, where his parents pay almost no taxes, very small, very low tax bill, lower than mine for my little house on Long Island.
Are they exempt from the $5 million tax?
Well, no, they're primary residents. Apparently they only have one residence here in New York City. So
I see.
So there's that. But and that's their primary, at least his father's primary residence. So he's not interested. These communists, the so-called communists, and actually all communists from the beginning, since the time of the Bolsheviks, they're not interested in improving the economic lot of people. It's not like, oh, they're misguided. They don't understand how it's going to hurt people economically. That's not their goal. Their goal is revenge, resentment, and violence. Hey, folks, there's a reason why the communists not only didn't jail the Tsar or his wife, and they killed him and killed their children and killed their nieces and nephews, because that was the end. It wasn't a means to the end. That was what they wanted, to kill. They hate, they resent, a lot of them aristocrats themselves, or at least born into the aristocracy. This is like an intramural battle. This is like someone losing an intramural basketball tournament, governor, in high school, and asking the rest of the world to go kill the team that beat them. I'm not interested in your little intramural battles. I'm sorry, Zohran, that you're still jealous of the kids who went to your high school who, despite their privilege, just like yours, actually achieved something in their lives and maybe added to wealth and make you look bad. By the way, that's one of the reasons why people hate Donald Trump. Yeah, he grew up privileged, but he made a lot more out of it. What are you doing with yourself? So Zohran Mamdani, the other communists, the other Democrats, there's a reason why they're typically white or at least grew up wealthy or upper middle class or better. Because for them, it's not about bettering anyone's economic plight. It's about revenge, hatred for their intramural little rivalries. And I'm not interested in getting involved in them because I know what that leads to. Again, people need to understand that. It's great to explain that in a classroom in economics, but outside of the classroom in economics, please don't waste your time explaining to Zohran Mamdani how communism and socialism won't help people economically. You got to tell him instead, I see your hatred, I know what it is, and we're not going to let you carry it out. Have a nice day.
And he tries to play both sides against the middle. There was a synagogue that got burned down or something. He went and he said, oh, this is terrible. The synagogue burned down. And I'm looking at the TV and I'm thinking I can read his mind because what he really wants to say is, it's too bad nobody was in it. Now, I don't want to be that, just say something like that as if he would say it. But there does seem to be something in the back of the minds of these individuals. They call themselves socialists. Sometimes they call themselves communists. And sometimes they don't necessarily take on a title, but what they are really looking for is destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to know, and I'm hoping you'll answer this question because I was thinking about it while you were speaking just a few minutes ago, is so now you have destruction. what do you have left? A bunch of people who've killed everyone else? I guess they'll start killing each other.
They will. They will eventually start killing each other.
It becomes a disease.
Well, this is the second time I'm going to mention this biblical character in our program. I did this several months ago. But this is very much the Cain and Abel story. People continue to mistake and misunderstand Cain's motivations for killing Abel. He's not jealous. He doesn't want to commune with God or get God's grace like Abel does after he performs his sacrifice, literal sacrifice. It's not that. He just hates him. He wants to kill him, and he does. He feels like maybe Abel made him look bad, or would perhaps force him to also work harder and take more risks in the future. And that's what he hates.
One quick question. Which one was older? I can't remember.
Yeah, there's probably an answer to that question right off the top of my head. I can't remember. They were not twins, though.
Right.
They were not twins. Off the top of my head, I want to say Cain was older.
I tend to think that
but I'll
as
check.
well.
I'll check. And all of this is, some of you are probably thinking, like, well, what are you talking about? Like, it's not really a factual story. If you don't believe in the factual aspects of the Bible, it doesn't matter. You have to understand that's not the point. The point is, Bible understands human nature really, really well. Really, really well. Whether you believe these stories are literally true or not, doesn't matter. And Cain is very much like the first communist in a lot of ways. He doesn't want to do anything more than minimal work. He doesn't want anyone to be rewarded for more achievement or more risk-taking. He's a violent SOB, just like all other communists, real communists, not people who are pretending communists while they're in college. He's a communist. And the Bible literally warned us about communists thousands of years ago with this particular story. And people should understand that there is really no other villain worse, at least in the Old Testament,
than Cain.
Because in Jewish lore and even in biblical lore, which includes the New Testament, but certainly the Old Testament, we don't consider Satan to have powers on earth. He's a fallen angel. He doesn't have any powers on earth. So we're talking literally as a character, human or not, Cain's the worst. And in rabbinic lore, he's so bad that at his death, he's not even buried, or the earth swallows him up. Like literally a hole opens and he drops in. So he's he is the original evil, much more than Adam's sin and Eve's sin of eating the apple, much, much worse than that. This is really a new level of evil. And Cain, this is the voice of Cain. When I said weeks ago, when AOC opens her mouth, I hear the voice of Cain. When Mamdani speaks now, I hear the voice of Cain, resentment, hatred. There's no interest in improving anyone's lot. Cain isn't like, okay, I'm really upset I didn't get God's approval like my brother Abel did. Let me talk to him and tell him that he sort of showed me up there. Don't flaunt it. Let's work together. And now we'll all be, no, I'm going to kill that guy. And that's what it is. And I literally heard once there was the rabbi of the Central Synagogue, I forget her name, gave a sermon years ago where she said, Cain had a pretty good motive. I thought to myself, oh my God. I mean, this has got to be the worst leader of a Jewish religious sect since the ones.
You think she's about to say.
Since the ones who decided, since the priests of Baal, at the time of the Bible, who decided that they would pray to two different gods, including the idol Baal. I mean, this is idolatry. This is precisely against the Jewish. No, he did not have an understandable motive to kill his brother. None. There was no excuse for it. There was none whatsoever. It was all about hatred and resentment, and he's the pilot light of that in the world. People should notice that. People should, whether you believe the story is completely factually true or not, doesn't matter. It's an important lesson.
And when you read that story, and you read so many stories in the Bible, and right here I'm saying, regardless of what your religion is or what your preference is in terms of what you believe in and what you don't, those stories are so prescient. They're so important to read right now, because when you read them, you realize who the characters of today are, who are taking the place of the ones that were written about 2,000 years ago. So I think we've reached the end of the line here on the left versus the right. Jake, thanks for joining me again today. And there is a possibility, a slight possibility, that we may not do the left versus the right show next week. And in that case, we're going to have, taking our places, a rematch. Cain and Abel will host the left versus the right next week.
Abel,
in that time,
Abel's already working hard. I understand Cain is doing no preparation, and he's just going to come out there and pretend he can get away with it. Abel's like Rita Cosby, the hardest working woman here. She's always putting her notes and working.
Right, exactly.
And she's thankfully rewarded here. No one here. There's no Cain trying to kill Rita Cosby here. And if there is, we're going to stop him. But whatever. You see it all the time. I mean, there's just so many other analogies similar to this in our lives. The kid who works harder in the classroom, and everyone just wants to borrow his notes, and when he doesn't do it, they literally want to physically attack
kill
him.
Yes.
Or you're making me look bad, or the classic story of someone who copied another person's homework, including their name. So the teacher says, "I have 2 really good homework assignments from Jimmy, but nothing from Frank." Like, whatever happened here? So there's things like that. But look, it's this is not a Bible show, and this is not a religion show. We've got the Rev and the Rabbi for that on tomorrow. But I want people to understand the importance of really understanding your enemy. Know thy enemy. And I know Jesus said, "Love thy enemy," but you also have to know thy enemy. And you're not dealing with a real economic, a real dueling economic philosophy here. If that were the case, we could fix this in a classroom. We could fix this in a Wall Street boardroom, and we'd be done. Because all we would have to do is show a couple of models and say, listen, I know you want to help the poor people and the lower middle class, but let me show you what really happens. Let's work together to really do that. And now let's have a Danish, and we're going to have a great time. That's not what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with people who want to destroy, who have personal vendettas, and are very much committed to actual violence. You cannot have communism without a commitment to violence. The communists killed the Tsar and his wife, killed his children, killed his nieces and nephews, including Anastasia. Sorry for all you conspiracy theorists. She's dead. She was always dead. And that's their end goal, not some kind of economic freedom or economic equality. Their goal is death.
And not even the idea of having a family or a strong political position or anything that gives credence to the way they've operated and has a real positive community. Well, after this, folks, you don't have to listen to Religion on the Line tomorrow because Jake and I covered it. But it will be on tomorrow at 11 o'clock with the Rev and the Rabbi, and we'll be back next week. We'll read up on Scripture and respond next Saturday, 3 o'clock on the left versus the right. He's Jake Novak. I'm David Paterson, and you are listening to WABC 77 in New York.